week, we are sharing about a wine tour we did while in Split, Croatia. To quote Lyle, I think this is the best wine tour we have ever done, and we have done a lot. That sounds like Lyle, I reckon. Anyway, that pretty much sums it up. It is the only wine tour where we both have shed a few tears as the winemaker shared his story. But it isn't all sad. In fact, it is the opposite. It was a spectacular vineyard and wine tasting tour where the wine was fabulous, the views amazing, and the company great fun. Make sure you listen to the end to hear about what some of the other people on the wine tour had us all singing. Here's a hint. They were from Sweden, so you can probably guess. If you would like to see all the pictures of the incredible views from the Sea View tasting rooms or from the rest of our wine tour, then click the link to episode 114 in the episode description on the player you are listening on now. So let's get started. Good afternoon, Lyle. How are you today?
I'm spectacular, thank you.
You say that every week.
Anita. Well, I'm always spectacular.
You are always spectacular, but today we're even more spectacular because we're talking about one of your favourite subjects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
that's wine. That's correct. So as I said in the intro, we are taking you on a fantastic wine tour that we did shed a couple of tears with a sad story and did finish the night with a bit of a sing-song. Now, this tour we did was highly recommended by some friends that we made earlier in our trip, Tiana and Tom from Croatian Boutique Travel Agency. Like, we did a wine tour with them that they took us to outside Zagreb, and she wanted to know where else we were going so she could give us recommendations of where we were. And when I said we were going to Split, this was the thing that sort of she immediately said, please, 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 if you do anything, please go and contact this guy and go and do this wine tour. So
you must do this.
Yeah, didn't want to let her down. A wine tour, we said sure. So we contacted Anton and we did the wine tour, and that's what we're going to tell you about today. And it was just such a fabulous experience that it deserves its own podcast. So this is the podcast. Yes?
Yes.
All right. So it was a nighttime tour, or nighttime evening. So we were picked up at 6 o'clock. The meeting place is very central in Split. It's at the giant statue.
Gregory of Nin.
Yeah. So and he's just outside the Golden Gate, so you can't miss him.
So you just rub his foot. Apparently that's tradition. You rub his foot for luck. So if you're going on a wine tour, why not?
Why not? And so we met the driver there, and there was a few other people that were on the tour he picked up there. There was a group of 5 English guys that were on a Bucks weekend, and their 6th friend was meeting us later. And then there was the lovely couple from Barbados.
Yep.
Right? And then we met the 5 women. There's a group of 5 Swedish women. We actually met them when we got to the tasting at the Sea View Terrace, right? So that was our whole group, which was a nice size, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
And may I say that the driver was so friendly. You really got a warm welcome, and I think that's a theme right throughout this wine tour. The staff were just so warm.
It was lovely. And it was a nice drive too. It was about a 25-minute drive just sort of around the bay, and we ended up at a parking area, and we all had to hop out of the van, and we needed to do, was about 200, 300-metre walk?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was like on a very gentle sort of sloping wide track through sort of a forest area down to the Sea View Terrace that we were going to be trying the wine at. And how good was that? Like, just you're on the side of a mountain, and next thing you turn around and you're being welcomed by the owner, Anton, and his niece, and being straight away handed a huge glass of rosé, and we're basically looking down over the vineyard to the ocean. It was pretty spectacular, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. And basically the wine terrace basically had floor-to-ceiling windows.
Yeah. So we were outside when we first got there.
Yeah.
And then we went inside, and it's just like a terrace. So I guess they've got the windows in case the weather's not good. But it was perfect the day we were there, and the whole side of it was open. And we had our own little table with a full bottle of wine and a plate of food. Most wine tastings you go to, they just give you a little taste, and here you go, and here you go. This was like, no, you can have as much as you like, right?
It was help yourself, more or less. And so each group of 2 got a bottle of wine, and Leanne and I had a table for two.
Yes.
And
because there's two of us.
Very good. And it was just amazing.
Yeah, because the views were beautiful as well. And at the beginning of a tour, everyone's just sort of getting to chat and getting to know each other. But then Anton wanted to sit down and tell us the history of the vineyard, the winery, and why he's so passionate about it. And so we had a little wander around, and then we went and sat inside. It's the first time this sort of happened at a wine tasting that we've been to. He basically sat down in the chair in the corner, and we're all at our little tables with our food and our wine. Rather than tell us about the wine, he tells us his story, didn't he?
Yeah, I get goosebumps now even thinking about it now. It was so well done.
But it was so moving too, because he had to fight his family and his father and his grandfather, and they've all had to go through so much just to have this land they want to make wine on and be part of the community. And at one stage through his story, you and I both had a little tear run down our cheek, didn't we? Because you could hear his passion and his love for what he did and what he sacrificed for that.
Yeah, well, look, Anton's family has worked with the winery for several generations, so that they have witnessed and been affected by the First and Second World Wars, the formation of the Communist Yugoslavia rule, and the War of Independence. So they've been involved in this wine area all through that. And
personally, he was in the
Croatian army.
War of Independence,
War of Independence, and that he basically had to go away and defend his country.
Otherwise, he would have lost the winery.
Yeah. One of the stories he told us is about he met an Australian gentleman that lives in Western Australia, and he said that a lot of Croatian expats, not only Australians, but all over the world, came to help with
defending the Croatian country.
And that he and the Australian guy had never been to Croatia. It was just that his mother and father were Croatian, and he came over and I'm pretty sure he donated $50,000 to the war effort, and that was it was pretty. I know he explained it, but I lost it in the translation, and I think there was against the law to actually have people donating money from other countries. But this guy somehow did it, and he stayed there for the 5 years. And once the war was over, the Australian guy went back to Perth, and they've remained the best of mates ever since.
And now that guy is at retirement age, and he's selling up what he's doing. He's done quite well for himself in Australia, and he's heading back over to Croatia, and particularly back to Split, and he's going to be working with Anton to help build that winery up. So I just can't imagine how good it's going to be when he's there and they're both working on that. It's just going to be great.
Yeah, so obviously
it's just such a good story, wasn't it? Of mateship, of loyalty to a country, to dedication to your family, to your land, and there we are sitting with this guy who's literally fought to keep what was his, and it was just, his story was so moving for both of us, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was so unique. It gave us a better understanding, probably, of the Croatian culture.
Yeah, sure.
And I was blown away with it. He was basically talking about the grape that the area is most famous for.
The Zinfandel.
The Zinfandel, yeah.
And he was saying that it's the same grape DNA wise as most of the popular wine grapes in the world.
Yeah, well, basically, it is exactly the same DNA as what they call as the California grape. Now, that's exactly the same DNA. The grape is known as the Krajnak Kastelanski. It's a Croatian name. A church close by once contained records.
So Anton told us this. The church just up on the little hill there.
Yeah, he actually pointed out.
It's on the mountain behind where he is. Yes.
Contains record that attested to Zinfandel having been grown in this area for at least 1,000 years. It's also grown in Italy, and I think it's called Primavera. So it's grown everywhere, which I assume that as the Croatians spread out, they took the grapes and planted them in other countries. In the 9th century, the village of Putal and the St. George Church were built here. Over time, the boundary between the Venetians and the Ottoman Empire crossed through here.
So this is just behind where we're tasting the wine. The mountain behind is what Lyle's talking about, this church area.
Yeah, and obviously the village isn't there anymore.
No.
But that was the name
but
of the village.
Church is,
yeah, but the church is.
And so the wines are called Patel wines. That's what you're saying, isn't it?
In the 15th century, fearing for their security, residents abandoned the area and moved closer to the sea. Anton's grandfather had immigrated to California for a time, eventually recognizing that some of the same types of grapes as he'd known in Croatia were being grown there. He had a good business during the Prohibition times, but eventually returned to Croatia. I can remember Anton, the smile on his face when he said he had a thriving business during the Prohibition times. So I think Grandpa might have been a bit naughty in his day. Family, and as I said, Anton's family has worked with wine for several generations so that they have witnessed the effects of the wars and that sort of thing. So,
but Anton's a bit of a legend in his own community too. He sings clapper.
Yes, not surprisingly, Anton is a keen participant in the traditional clapper singing. Clapping music is a form of traditional cappella singing with origins in Dalmatian Croatia. Look, the guy, I was blown away with him. The charisma he had was just unbelievable. It'd be hard to say how old he was. Good looking man, just built like granite. He really, really impressed me.
Well, as I said, most wine tours you go and they want to tell you about the tannins in the wine, and we got that as well when we went to the next part of the tour. But it's the first time that someone's really shared their story of their love of the area, the love of the vineyard, the love of the family, and how making wine brings all that together.
Well, I actually had a look at their website, and Anton Kovac, which is the owner and the winemaker, his quote, "There is absolutely no substitute for love and dedication to your craft." And that so came across, didn't it?
Yeah. All right. So after he's given us the story, and we're all sort of, now we're emotionally attached to him because so enamored by what he's been through, it just made everything even more special. So
I think the fact that we'd had a full bottle of rosé.
I gave it away. Stop it.
Oh, okay. Not. Well, I had my share of the bottle. I think that also made you a little bit more emotional.
But we then went outside, and he said, please wander around, go up and down the rows of grapes, and you just chat, enjoy yourself. And so when you went outside, you look back up to the terrace, the sea view terrace, and behind that's where the mountain was, the big mountain range and the church that you're talking about. And the sun was dipping down behind that mountain, and there was sort of a glow coming out from behind the mountain, and then the vapor trails from planes were going across the sky, and the glow from the sun was lighting those up, and then they're just turning the colour of the sky a bit pink, which then was reflecting on the ocean that you could see just over the top of the vineyards there. So it was beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, we jagged it again. The weather was absolutely fantastic. It was warm, but without not being overtop. Anton's Winery, which is known as Patel Winery, acquired its name from the church, along with its logo of St. George slaying the dragon. So the actual label, St. George slaying the dragon.
If you would like to see the photos that I took of the sky and the mountain and the grapevines and the sea view terrace and the rosé, and plus all the other stuff that we did, but I did get some beautiful photos there. Go to the podcast player that you're listening on now and click on the link to episode 114 in the description to see that. It's just beautiful. You're not going to be sorry. Yeah.
Well, actually, after Lan and I went outside, and as Lan said, the views were unbelievable, but we actually went back inside, and Anton was sitting there, and we asked whether we could join him, and we basically sat with him and enjoyed another glass of rosé with him, and he was so personable, and there was no rush. There's I think we may have been, just for the rosé part of the winery, I think we were there for about an hour. So there was no rushing. Least. There was no. Yeah. He was so generous.
Well, I think he's obviously enjoying what he's fought and worked to make.
Well, he said to me he does this tour every day.
Yeah.
And he does it. He doesn't have anybody else do it. Yeah, he tells that story every day.
And I will put a link to the tour in the show notes as well. So, But we had to finish our time with the rosé, and we then all walked back up the little track up to where our van was, and we hopped back in that, and that's where we headed to the production area, which is actually at the back of his home. He has like a whole area set up, and Kovac Wines it's called, and that's where we went down into the barrel area, the fermentation area, didn't we? And we tasted wines directly from the barrel there, some red wine. We got the long glass tube and got it out and filled our glass with that. So we all got to try. We were trying, I think we tried 2 or 3 different wines there, and then he said, whichever one you want, this is what I'll bring you when we move into the dining area. And it wasn't, because there weren't that many of us, it was a good size, lots of information there as well if you're into learning about the wine making process as well.
Yeah, and just which I'm not sure whether we did mention or not. When when we were having the rosé tasting, there was lots of local cheeses.
Oh yeah, that's true.
And bruschetta. It was high quality. It was really great. But so as Lan said, he took us down to the fermentation area, and we tried the local wine and
the latest releases, didn't we?
Yeah, the latest releases. And then as we went into the dining area,
there was tables set up for us. So there was the table for the Swedish girls, and then we had a little table next to the guys from English, and the couple from Barbados were there as well. So it was a great size room. We all seated nicely. We had privacy, but we had enough closeness that we could chat if we wanted to. Now, it turns out the 5 guys from England were there for a bucks party, as we said, and they were supposed to be 6, but there was 5. Now, the other guy turned up, met us there after we'd been to the Seaview Terrace. He met us here at these tasting rooms, and because he had left in the morning, just grabbed his passport out of the drawer, headed to the airport, and when he got to the airport, he realised he had his wife's passport. So he then had to go home and get his proper passport. So anyway, so the guys are saying, oh, Charlie will meet us here. And so when we got there, we were all, as Lyle was saying, had a few rosés, and we were all getting to know each other. And so feel like we're Charlie's best friends. So we chatting away to Charlie, and so the night goes on, and it ends up, and I'm sort of jumping ahead, but I want to finish this story, but I'll come back to the tasting in a minute. We're on the bus home, and I'm sitting next to Charlie, and I'm sort of talking to him, and he said to me, you realise my name's not Charlie, that's my wife's name. So we'd been calling this poor guy Charlie because he'd taken her passport. And
that was only because all his mates were calling him Charlie.
I know, that's what they told us, right? Yeah. But his real name was James. We laughed about that. That was funny. But he didn't care.
No. He was actually a really funny guy.
Yeah, so we've been down to the tasting rooms. We've tried the current ones in the barrels, and we've got the new releases. We've all come upstairs. We've told Anton and his niece the wine we liked, and so there's basically a full bottle on our tables and the biggest platter of local foods that you could imagine. We've got the local olive oils as well to try with the bread, and then there's so much cheese, prosciutto, and you don't need dinner after this. This is enough to fill you up completely, isn't it? We couldn't get through all the stuff, and he kept coming back and saying, would anyone like more food? Would anyone like more wine? There was unlimited food and wine, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Which was really fun. After we'd done the tastings and we were all chatting, Anton and his niece, they just sort of left us be. So we were just then relaxing and just enjoying the food and wine and the company too. So is there anything you want to talk about the wine before I move on to a bit of the fun stuff?
Yeah, just to give you a bit of an idea about the wine itself. Their label is the Patel label, and it's the Patel Winery in Split started its commercial path by releasing 2010 Patel's Zinfandel. In vintages 210, 211 and 212, it was 85% Zinfandel and 15% Plavic Mali. The wine is aged in Slavonian oak barrels for 6 months and released the following year. Patel is medium-bodied wine with aromas of sour cherry, vanilla and spice, and a nice tannin grip.
And I have to say, the wine was good. We didn't really say that, but we just sort of, the atmosphere and the story was amazing, but the wine matched it. It was beautiful. We took some home with us, didn't we?
Yeah, 100% agree.
Yeah.
So Zinfandel gives it nice acid balance, and to counter high alcohol content, the Plavic Marley ensures tight and firm tannin structure. In 2013, Patel has turned its attention to producing 3 labels: Patel Zinfandel, Patel's Plavic Marley, and the Patel Rosé. From 2014 and forward, a special bottle of Winemaker Selection Blend has been available only to guests of the winery for tasting and purchase. Now, he also talked about the terroir, and you only had to look out of the window at the terraces to see it was quite steep. The land is basically limestone, and the vineyards face the south, so they get that the sun and also the ocean breezes. He also talked about the different categories in Croatia. I won't say the Croatian names. I tried that before, and Leanne just looked at me. So there is the highest quality is premium quality wine, and then there's table wine. So he explained all that. And
so you get a really good balance: wine history, wine education, area history. It's a fully immersive wine experience, isn't it?
Yeah, I was probably going to leave this till the end, but I think it was my favourite wine tour ever. Yeah. And we've done a lot, pretty much all over the world.
Well, it's the only one, as I said, that was brought a tear to our eye.
Yeah.
And yeah, we just really loved it. So we were there in the dining area. We've had the wine, I can't remember which one we chose actually, the red wine that we chose, and as much food as we could eat. And we were also chatting away. And then the Swedish girls, they were having the time of their life. Like the English guys they were having fun too. They'd sort of started the day early.
I think they started about 6 o'clock in the morning.
When they hopped on the plane, right? But then the Swedish girls, bless them.
Weren't they celebrating their 50th birthday?
I think they were all having a 50th birthday.
Yeah, and they'd gone to high school together.
They started singing ABBA songs. So I think they started with Mamma Mia, and everyone knew it, and everyone joined in. It was just so much fun because, as I said, we've started with a very serious, somber, moving story, and then to finish the day singing with other people these ABBA songs. It was just wonderful, wasn't it?
Well, it's funny. I'm just thinking about it now, but you had those 5 English guys.
6 now.
Well, 6 now, probably 30s.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And the ladies, the Swedish ladies, obviously it's their 50th birthday, and ABBA.
Yeah. Everyone knows it.
Everybody knows it.
Well, even the guys from Barbados, they
were all singing.
He had a ball.
He was one of the biggest men I've ever seen. He was. And one of them, I'm not saying like big as in overweight.
No, he was tall and solid. But he was
a ball of muscle.
He was, and his wife was sort of rolling her eyes, like almost pretending she was embarrassed because he was up dancing, having such a fun time as well. So
he was a lovely bloke.
Yeah, it was great fun. It was so much fun. And I guess that's one of the joys of doing one of these tours, because everyone there is there because they obviously want to be in Croatia, and they're there because they want to try the local wine and get to know a bit about the local culture and local families. So it brings different people together with common interests, which we always find with wine tours as well. So we loved this wine tour, as you said, thoroughly enjoyed it. And it was really sad when it was time to hop on the bus and they drove us back to the giant statue. And there was a fair bit more ABBA going on
during the trip, the transport.
And one of the Swedish ladies was sitting up the front, and she was giving everyone a commentary on the way back, and
that's something I do.
Yeah, and she was describing the buildings and as well, and then she'd break into song. It was just the best fun and wonderful wine and food and people. It was the whole package was great, wasn't it?
Yeah, actually, and I did ask Anton about how he feels about what happened over a period of time, and he said, look, it was 30 years ago. He said, my kids don't even know it happened.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Really?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
But I was glad he shared that story with us. So it's probably a redundant question, but your favourite place to have a wine here? Was it like on the Seaview Terrace having the rosé? Was it walking through the grapevines having a rosé? Was it tasting in the tasting rooms, or was it sitting down having that beautiful red wine with the cheese afterwards?
And the entertainment. All the above.
All the above, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not picking. Yeah. Sorry.
Well, I'm going to pick only because I just adored that sea view terrace and being outdoors and looking back up to that, as I said, with that mountain range behind, the little church on the hill and the sun going down behind it. It was one of those moments in time that you just will never forget.
Okay. Yeah. All right, I got to pick one. I would pick getting the opportunity to sit down with the winemaker Anton and just chatting generally about everything. He impressed me so much.
Well, thank you for listening to episode 114 of the Beach Travel Wine podcast. And
you have to get that in.
Yes, we'll be back next week from somewhere else in Croatia. So it's goodbye from me.
It's goodbye from me.